I'd like to begin with asking you what inspired you to pursue a career in architecture?
It has been very interesting because the kind of projects that you get to work on, the large scale impact that you get to have as an architect, I think that's very fascinating.
How would you describe the role of an architect in shaping a modern society?
I think architects are the keystone to shaping future societies.
And what do you think are the key skill qualities that students should develop to succeed in architecture?
So apart from understanding the design aesthetic, I think design aesthetic is something that you kind of hone over a period, a sense of aesthetic in design. Design thinking is something very important because you are looking at creative problem solving. But these two are something that everyone will also tell you about when you have to think of architecture as a career.
Good evening everyone. It's an absolute honor to welcome you all to this mestori, Conversation for Tomorrow, today. Today we have the privilege of hearing from someone who once walked these very halls, sat in these classrooms and faced the same challenges and opportunities that we do. Apoorva Lakshmi Ragi is a licensed architect and a member of the Indian Institute of Architects with a diverse background in architecture, urban planning and UX design. She holds a B.Arch degree from Acharya's NRD School of Architecture and has pursued further studies in psychology, urban planning with extensive experience in architecture design, teaching and visualization. She has worked on notable projects and large-scale urban development. She has also been actively involved in academia as an assistant professor at MS Ramaiah Institute of Technology and School of Planning and Architecture, Bhopal. A multi-talented professional, she has contributed to publications, photography exhibitions and research on sustainable urban development. Let's now begin with a set of questions that we have based on shaping skylines, inspiring futures and the power of architecture. So ma'am, I'd like to begin with asking you what inspired you to pursue a career in architecture and how has your journey been so far?
I think from the beginning I was always interested in seeing how the spaces and things were around, understanding homes, especially how spaces in homes are. So I think that kind of pushed me towards architecture, although I was not sure about it. After 12th I was confused to pick a field, and my father is in the field as well. He's a structural designer, which then made me understand that yes, this is probably what I would like. That's how I picked architecture, and the journey has been quite interesting and challenging because the world is changing so quickly and we have to adapt along with it. So it has been very interesting because the kind of projects that you get to work on, the large scale impact that you get to have as an architect, I think that's very fascinating. I think the things that I do, a small little drawing that I do can affect almost like a whole, a project, around 200 people living in a project. Now that is something very interesting, so I like that.
Okay, so next I'd like to ask you, how would you describe the role of an architect in shaping a modern society?
I think architects are the keystone to shaping future societies, and we have the responsibility of shaping the spaces. And since I have been studying and working and researching on environmental behavioral studies, which is basically a study of how the environment around you shapes you and your experiences. Since I've been doing that, I feel like there is even more responsibility as an architect to affect society at large, not just in terms of the spaces that you create, but also in defining the narrative of the society itself. Are you leading towards sustainability? Are you leading towards being environmentally sensitive? These are some of the basic things that we affect, because according to all the CO2 emissions, architecture and design and buildings are obviously one of the, I think about 30% of global emissions are due to construction industry. So apart from that sustainability responsibility, we also have the responsibility of affecting people's perspectives and thought processes. So since the environment affects the people, in the future, if we are moving towards societies which are largely integrated with technology and digital revolution, I think architects will have more effect and impact in these kind of societies. So I'm actually really curious to see how the future is going to pan out, because we architects will not just be designing the physical spaces, we'll have to design spaces that are digital and more. We don't know what might come and what are the integrated spaces that might come. So all of that. So yeah.
And what do you think are the key skill qualities that students should develop to succeed in architecture?
So apart from understanding the design aesthetic, I think design aesthetic is something that you kind of hone over a period, a sense of aesthetic in design. Design thinking is something very important because you are looking at creative problem solving. But these two are something that everyone will also tell you about when you have to think of architecture as a career. But these two may be very key, but I think being entrepreneurial is something that would really help in succeeding as an architect. If you are someone who is good with people, who can manage people, then you can also manage projects and large scale projects especially, because an architect is always an entrepreneur. You always start your studio, you have your own practice, and that is as much as having a startup with the IT sector. So here your net worth is your network. So if you have a good network, you understand how to manage people, then there is short way of success, even if your design thinking is not as strong as you think.
Okay. Ma'am, do you think any specific subjects in school that can help students prepare for architecture courses?
The education in school tries to make you understand the basic constructs of knowledge. So they particularly would never accommodate courses, professional courses in the curriculum. So I wouldn't directly draw parallel as to which subject would help as an architect, but definitely what thinking would help as a school going student is that you try to be creative and problem solving, those logical, analytical and endlessly curious. I think these qualities, if you can build through your school going time, that would really help in architecture as well.
Okay. So architecture is a vast field. Could you explain some of the major specializations that students could pursue after their degree?
So architecture is that one degree which helps multi-talented people. I call myself a multi-passionate because I pursue a lot of fields. And I feel like this is a gateway for people. It's not a degree that is the end. It is a degree that is a gateway which opens you to understand various different fields. So this is one field which allows you to pick masters and further studies in diverse areas. I know my contemporaries who have gone on to designing set designs, game design, and with an architecture degree. So anything related to design becomes something which is a future prospect. Apart from this, the regular master's courses that you always have, of course, would be your planning fields. Planning is like town planning, environmental planning, transportation planning, all of these planning fields. Landscape architecture is great for those who are interested to deal with nature and how to design smaller environmental spaces. And these days the buzzword and trending word is obviously the UX design, which a lot of people are shifting into. So you can really pursue any different kind of masters once you have done your bachelor's in architecture. Whether it is from design perspective or planning perspective, there are a lot of opportunities for masters in this. You can even do product design, industrial design. So someone who's more interested interior design, of course you don't need to pursue a master's degree. You can always practice without it. But planning and design related fields are something which would give you extra insight on how to apply the basic things that you have picked up in architecture and how to refine them and apply it in a more streamlined way to the field required. So yes, design and planning are two things you can keep in mind.
Okay. So how does virtual design and construction differ from the traditional design approaches in architecture?
So virtual design construction is a concept which we may understand theoretically, but practically what usually implementation happens is only through BIM design. So BIM is one tool to achieve virtual design construction. but that is of course what people know. If you say VDC, people might not know in the field, but BIM certainly everybody knows. So virtual design construction in India, I would say, has not yet achieved that stage where we can really say that so many projects have been done through this method. But it is the upcoming field. It is definitely something that going forward in 10 to 20 years we'll be seeing that very rampant. So being equipped with that knowledge is very important, I understand. And I think VDC is going to change because it's going to allow large amount of people to come together and achieve construction of complex designs in shorter spans with more efficiency. So what lot of VDC mostly is used in the Middle East and Singapore and things like that, places like that, because we see construction happening at breakneck speed there, and that is achievable only because they use technologies like this. So I think if in about 10-20 years we can see that everybody would be adapting to this method, and how it really differs from traditional architecture practice would vary based on the scale of the project, I would say. So if you're using VDC in a large scale project, definitely you would see a drastic difference from traditional architecture practice to BIM technologies, because then your timelines are varied, your estimations are varied, documentation is streamlined, you are using 5D BIM, 6D BIM, your materiality has changed. So all of that will come in, and it will help you to not only make it cost effective, and also because your OPEX cost is obviously going to be decreased because of the kind of choice of materials and design process that you do now, but also that it is going to be completed faster, and any changes that need to be done can be done faster. If the same building had to be done in traditional methods, the amount of discussion that happens between different consultants is usually something that takes time. So a structural consultant who's on board may update with something, and then how that affects with a mechanical or an HVAC person or the electrical consultant, all of that usually takes some time. And to come together where the clashing of things has to be resolved, and those take meetings and discussions and all of that. But when we do VDC, we are avoiding a lot of that. And we also understand the sustainability parameters better with VDC. So I think overall it would be a better method to move towards, but it is not something that firms can switch to in a day or two. It takes years, and as much as we can, if we start building around 10 years later, I think we'll see that to be the norm.
So, ma'am, besides becoming an architect, what are the other career options available for architecture graduates?
So, I think this is tying back to the question that we earlier had with what are the other master's options that you have. So, as an architect, some more master's option that I would like to add is there are people who would love to pursue history and theory in architecture. So, there are history, theory, practice master's degrees, and architecture journalism is also one of the things, architectural photography is also one of the things. So all of these master's degrees, without master's degrees also you can get into them, and those could be your career options too. So I myself know architecture photographers. I had my own architecture photography studio for a while, and I think that is a great option, because these days a lot of firms, because of social media presence, would really prefer to document their work through photography, videography. So if somebody is interested in that, they can move towards that. Then there are a lot of architects who would want to say product design is something that I constantly notice that a lot of people want to do. So I think whether it is any passion that you have which is design related can be your career option after architecture, because what architecture does is it equips you with understanding of how to deal with a project, with a design problem. Your design brief is set, and your entire semester all you're doing is spending time on figuring out the process to achieve the answer. So the solution to a design problem is what you are taught, and this can then be taken and applied to any career path. So any of the passions that you are strong at, if that is related to design, then that's the career option.
Okay. Ma'am, how does the demand for architects vary globally, and are there any international opportunities for Indian architect graduates?
I think in India there are a lot of architects graduating every year, and since this is a country right now with the highest population, and of course a lot of construction going on, every city is growing, smart cities are coming up, so there is a huge demand for architects in general. But for you to find where that demand is and go position yourself there, that is what is your journey as a student or a graduate. You would have to invest time to understand where is it that you're going and where can you find that demand supply, because it is not like the IT industries where you have campus placements and you just come and get in there, but you have to understand where you would have to be. It is a studio setup, which studio you would like to join, what kind of projects you would like to work on. Like one of my students went ahead and worked for Metro, right? So she worked for the Gujarat Metro, for the Kochi Metro, so all of those. So it's for you to understand that in this country with such amount of construction happening every single day, where can you position yourself? And looking at globally, definitely I think the Middle East has a lot of demand for architects. That is what I hear. And if you're looking at planning and things like that, then Australia, Europe, they also look for planners. And the US and Canada Canada is still better, but US is slightly difficult. Apart from the fact that you have to go through few examinations which take a lot of time and effort and money, you would not be getting the license. You may have a license in India, but that does not count it's not applicable to their territories. So I think demand for architects exists much more in India rather than abroad, but the architecture jobs you may find more abroad than in India.
Okay. Ma'am, so are there any dedicated career paths for BIM or VDC specialists, and how do these roles differ from the traditional architects again?
There wouldn't be too much difference in the career path as a fresh graduate, but once you pick up, if you are intentional about being a BIM expert, which is right now of course a lot in demand, a lot of government projects are also moving towards BIM. So they ask you that we need a BIM architect on the team. So if you are specializing in BIM from the beginning, then your career path is definitely building in that direction. So as a fresher, the traditional and BIM architecture may not be that different, and I don't think we can call it different because BIM is also a new way of architecture. So I don't see a distinction between traditional architecture and BIM architecture. We are all architects, we all have to upgrade ourselves to BIM technologies. It's up to us which career path we would choose, which job practice we would choose, because some may prefer a studio setup of working, some may prefer a corporate role of working. So BIM architects would find that corporate feel when they're working. So that if they're looking for that kind of job profiles, then practicing all your softwares thoroughly, joining the firm that you first join, let it be the one which works with Revit, which works with, even your internship should be a firm that works with Revit probably. That would open out your mind to understand how much of BIM is actually being used and implemented in practice. So that may help you to choose your further options. But as a fresher, there isn't much difference between a traditional and BIM architect. But once you go ahead, if you have niched out as a BIM architect, then definitely the kind of work that you do will not be design oriented. It will be it will be a larger role. You will be doing a lot of not a project management as such, not a professional, but your work will also be consulting with multiple people and things like that. You will not get the what you call as traditional studio setup. It will be a far larger team. You will be working in team of like say 500 people, 200 people on a project maybe. So we recently worked on an airport project where just the interior design, we were about 250 professionals working together. So the kind of scale of offices that you work in will drastically change once you look at BIM as your path. Yes.
Ma'am, so since you told us about your design regarding the airport and having these many people on a team, so can you tell us how you worked with BIM, DDC, and how it played a crucial role in designing there?
So I think when it comes to BIM, we worked on about 3-4 projects only in the BIM methodology, because like I said, it takes some upskilling of the team to be using that, and it's not just the architecture firm that needs to use BIM. It's everybody, the whole system has to use BIM. If you solely say I will do BIM and everybody else is not upgraded to that, then it won't make sense. So even the client has to be onboarded on that. It's not that easy to find all of that together for every single project that you do. So where possible, we try to implement things with BIM, and it is good. Mainly because for us as designers, what helps us the most is that the changes are instant. We can really update on process faster. But we haven't yet done a project where the entire team, including the OPEX and the maintenance and the client, was on board for that. So that would be, say, a LOD 300, LOD 5, I mean 300 is what we worked with, say LOD 500 projects we haven't yet done. But definitely looking forward to that. I think the construction industry also has to still reach that level. Looking forward to more projects like that.
So how important is an architectural portfolio for a student to be focusing on? And
how important is the architecture
Yeah.
for portfolio when you are
how
applying
much
for
focus
jobs?
is to be put into an
I think
architectural portfolio?
That is everything. An architecture portfolio is everything, because it really represents you and defines you. So I think by your 7th semester, you should already have understood what is it that you want to put in, which of the projects you would like to put in, and take some time to refine some of the work, because when we work for a submission towards the end of a semester, we may not have given our best, and that needs to be refined and fine-tuned. And portfolios have to be showcasing your ability to simplify what you want to show, because people who are looking at portfolios are not having enough time to give to every project. So they're literally rushing through 5 minutes per portfolio. So if you can really filter out everything and bring the most important and the best part of your work onto your portfolio, which shows your key strengths, I think nothing is more important than that. So it's not just about plastering very fancy renders or very complex drawings in which you work only this much on. It's about showcasing your strengths, and how can you do it, how cleanly you can do it, how quickly can people understand what you want to convey. I think that those are the skills that as a person who's hiring will also impress them. So it's important, because portfolio is what they will look at. So portfolio is the key.
So ma'am, what advice would you give to 12th grade students who are passionate about architecture but unsure about their career choice?
I would say pick architecture if you're passionate about design, if you're passionate about your interest in creating and curating spaces, in having effect on a large amount of people with your design. If you're sure about this, then you should pick architecture. If you're confused, and I suggest that you try to talk to more architects and understand what their journey has been, and see whether it aligns with what you envision for your future. And I don't think people should have hasty decisions and jump into architecture because there is less maths here, because trust me, there is maths here. You are going to have to do maths no matter what. And I don't think people should jump to architecture because they're good at drawing, because although drawing is key as an architect, that is not the reason why you should be here. Your reason has to be solely your passion for creating spaces, your passion for understanding humans, because a lot of designing spaces for humans requires you to understand humans. So if you can find varied professionals, not just who are practicing architects, but architects who are practicing other than architecture, if you can talk to them, like someone, like I said, one of my contemporaries is a game designer, a set designer. So if you're talking to them, then you'll get very interesting perspective. I have friends who are planners. So when you talk to them, your mind really expands and the possibilities show up. Then you'll be able to make a right choice whether you are looking at architecture or what is beyond architecture and what are the avenues that are there. Because when you do engineering, your avenue is very clear: engineering, job, the end. So, but when you are doing architecture, you know that this is a world that is a Pandora's box. You can really do anything once you do architecture. But do you want to do that is something that you need to decide. And to decide that, you need to talk to people. So talk to as many people as you can who are pursuing architecture, who have left architecture, who are pursuing something else after architecture. Talk to everyone you can.
Ma'am, so imagine designing a building 50 years from now. What futuristic features would you include to make it sustainable and smart?
So there was a competition, I think about 10 years back, which said productive cities, designing future cities. And I was in college, and you have to, I think, no, not 10 years back, way more, whatever, when I was in college. So the topic was 50 years from now, what would be the sustainable city that you would develop or future that you would develop. And my idea then is something that I still think is interesting and relevant, and I would like to work on it someday. It was basically a city which was in a grid, and there were no roads, there is no transport such as cars and two-wheelers, and it would be a gravity based transportation system, and the whole city is based around this transportation. And there is no question of land, because in future there is a lot of land shortage, and any land that we have, we need to devote to agriculture, because that's what sustains us. So the idea, it was called Smart Pod Board City. So why it was called that is because there would be towers where, not towers what you think currently, but spaces of virtual space where you would understand with GPS what would be the different grid where you can position your house, and these would be movable houses with a skeletal grid system. So you can take a small grid, which would be the smart automation, and to it you can attach any rooms. So each one gets to customize their house as well, and when you're moving from this tower to that tower, you'll unplug it and go and plug it. So this was the idea that I had been working on, and I was very fascinated with it. And the gravity based transportation system, this was before Elon Musk came up with Hyperloop, and I was drawing all these diagrams with the transportation system. So yeah, that is clearly something I would like to see happen, because you're not spending money on money or resources on transportation. Gravity is free. And of course there is lot of open areas in between all these towers, because that's where agriculture can happen. And there would be different pods where people would want public and private transport. So the whole idea was very interesting. That's my idea of a futuristic city.
That sounds very interesting. Ma'am, so can architecture influence human emotions and behaviors? Could you share an example of a space that emotionally impacted you?
So like I said, I have taught the subject environmental behavioral studies. I've done masters in psychology and understanding of spaces. I worked with conscious cities as a project as well, where we understand, make people go through spaces and understand what the space is impacting on them. So I think I'm the champion to say that I champion for the idea that spaces affect people, definitely. Every space you are in has a clear effect and clear impact on you. So understanding that might not be that easy, because everybody is different. Each person might react differently to different things based on their personal narrative as well, personal experience as well. But overall, there is a clear understanding from historical times that certain proportions, certain colors, certain arrangement of spaces always have effect on people. So there is a direct correlation, and this has been established, long studied, no doubt about it. And it affects human behavior also in terms of making them, so there is in airports when you go, you have, or any places, public spaces you go, you have lot of these seating which is next to each other. Now what it does is, you wouldn't be able to sit and talk as a group. So if you went as a group, you wouldn't really be talking to all of you wouldn't be talking together. So there is socio-pedal seating arrangement and socio-fugal seating arrangement. Now what these mean is, when all of them are together and you make, say, chairs which are arranged looking at each other, like how we are seated now, it's easier for conversation than if you put them row by row. So where would you want people to, interact? You would design differently. Where you wouldn't want them to interact, you would design differently. So from small things such as furniture placement to the heights of the buildings, so there is clear emotional impact, clear behavioral impact because of the space. So I think that is existing. And as to which building really affected me emotionally, I would have to say Buland Darwaza. So this stayed with me because it goes back to the time when I was just beginning my architecture course and I was in second year. And we had gone on a study tour to the North India, the Jaipur, Rajasthan, Delhi and all of that. And like everyone, we were all looking forward to looking at the Taj. And we went and it was very underwhelming. Taj wasn't really as amazing as everyone said. But Buland Darwaza is lesser known to general population. And we had kind of gone at night, and I stood, so Buland Darwaza has this 127 feet height, it's at that height, and you have a huge amount of stairs that lead you up, and they're all very high. So I'm at the base of it and I look up, and this whole Darwaza with the inlay of marble and the night sky, I think that's a memory that I would not forget, because it had that emotional impact. And surrounding the whole space was small vendors selling their stone carvings and little things. So I think that was a very key memory for me.
Okay. Ma'am, so how do architects balance client demand with their own creative vision without compromising on design quality?
That is totally up to how good you are with people. Okay. If you can really manage people and understand what the client wants. What the client says they want is different from what the client wants. Okay. So if you can understand the difference between the both, and you deliver something that they actually want but they don't know that they want it, but once you do it, they're like, oh yeah, this is it, this is what I'm looking for. So understanding of your client is very important. In any project, I think if you can understand the client, then half your design brief is set. Once your design brief is clear, if your design brief is very sorted, then the design quality won't get affected. Your creative vision won't get affected. Their needs won't get affected. So understanding and curating a very good design brief, I think that's where one should focus to be able to achieve that. So yeah, understand your client and then curate a brief that will achieve all of this.
Ma'am, what's the most unexpected lesson that you've learned through your architectural journey that textbooks never teach?
I think it warrants to repeat that your network is your net worth. It really matters, and that is something that I understood only after I got into the practice. Having good relationship with your consultants and vendors, having good consultants, like if your design is great, you have done your creative vision, everything, but your structural engineer is not aligned with your vision, your project is gone for a toss. So if your mechanical engineer messes up because they did not understand what you were envisioning, your project is gone. So I think every understanding who is the right person to take on board as part of your team, that your team is really important, your clients are really important, your people are really important. At the end of the day, we're designing for people, but the design process requires lot of people interaction. So your people skills really matter.
If you could redesign any famous landmark in the world using BIM or VDC technologies, which one would you choose and why?
The reason why anyone would want, say, VDC or BIM is to increase the efficiency of the process of construction, to understand how sustainability can be brought in and integrated, and to see whether you can optimize the different kinds of consultants who are coming in, and optimize on the time, optimize on the materials, all of that. So every building that has been built until now has been built based on the context and the need of that point. So I wouldn't redesign a building using BIM, because the whole point of BIM or VDC is to go ahead with that. I would suggest that every building going forward has to be using BIM and VDC, rather than say that I would go back and design, I don't know, some tower with, Burj Al Arab with VDC. I mean, I'm sure they did it with BIM, but what I mean is I wouldn't take a building and redesign it, but I would rather say that every design going forward should have this.
So if architecture is considered the mother of all arts, how would you think it blends with creativity, with science, technology in today's world?
So architecture is definitely mother of all arts. I agree to that completely, because you need to have different kinds of creative skills and abilities to be able to pursue architecture. And what was the question again?
If architecture
how it blends
with the science and technology in today's world.
Yeah. So I think the design part of it can be done without science and technology, because it is a lot of design thinking. But any execution of architecture obviously requires science and technology. And right now going forward, what I can see is that this science, technology and design is becoming, one process altogether. It is no more separate, because we are looking at design where sustainability as materiality is very important, which means you cannot design something and then say that for this wall I will do this material. Then that is just pasting onto an existing building sustainability as a perimeter of facade, but that is not what we want. But what we would want is that your design thinking itself integrates sustainability together, which means your science and creativity cannot be separated anymore. It has to go hand in hand. Your process, like there is so much research in architecture department at MIT and Harvard, which focuses on different fields, whether it is using some sort of bacteria and amoeba to come up with a different material to, the kind of, you can look out for master's degrees in these and see the syllabus. You will be surprised to see what kind of fields that they are connecting through science to creatively problem solve a design issue. So science, technology and design cannot be separated. They are all together. You have to work simultaneously and think about it as one holistic process, rather than I will do this and then we'll add on to this. That never works. So it's one holistic integrated process, and as much as we can integrate it, that better it would be.
Okay. So this brings an end to the questions that I have. Is there anything that you would like to tell future aspiring architects or students who are passing out after their degree? Anything that you'd like to tell them?
I think we pretty much covered a lot of it in the questions. But I would recommend that don't limit your vision to a job. Don't think that I am an architect now and now my whole point in life is to get a job, because all your other friends are doing that who are not architects. So that just creates an insane pressure which is unnecessary, that you should avoid. What you should see is what kind of impact I want to create and how I want to achieve that, how I can remain passionate through doing all of that. Because you are not here to sit like a horse and do one work and go, then you wouldn't be choosing this course. You're choosing this course because you have passion towards it, which means you should never lose that passion. The day you've lost that passion, then all this comparison business happens and then you only become spiral down. So don't let that happen to you. Don't get insecure because of anything else. Focus on your passion and how you can do best to make sure your passion, whether it is in art or music or anything it is, how it can be bettered and how you can take your skills from your architecture course or how you can blend them to your architecture course, whatever it is. How your interest and passion can be kept alive should be the sole intention, while also thinking how I can impact better. Now that's the only way you would have a fulfilling career which also pays you well. But once you start looking for jobs, that's when I think you will start seeing things differently, and I wouldn't recommend that to anyone. So yeah.
Okay. So how do technologies like AI, 3D printing, virtual reality impact the future of architectural design along with BIM and VDC?
So AI, I think, is obviously the current reality that we have to accept, and we understand that it is affecting every domain and definitely architecture. In design, AI these days we have been using to make things faster, especially when you have projects where you're working on really tight deadlines and there's not enough time to go between teams to do the entire visualization. There are a lot of AI tools which help you visualize instantly, which saves us a lot of time. So in the initial processes, it's good to use AI in terms of visualization, but I would highly recommend not to use it as the main work, because I don't think AI is yet there to offer the services in that domain. But otherwise, when you're looking at going and doing, say, photogrammetry, so conservation architecture is another field that one pursues in masters, so heritage conservation. So when you're looking at things like that, when you're trying to say a 3D printing or photogrammetry is basically clicking pictures from different directions and then having a 3D model of it. So there are a lot of technologies that would best apply in those cases as well. AI also helps us reconstruct what are the past, in heritage conservation, what was the past like. So it helps us reconstruct better, and there are enough tools for all of that. Even if you're looking at understanding, if you're a interior designer who's called on board, or if you're given an empty floor, build a floor to work with. So usually we take a lot of time to do measure drawing of each of things. But I think last year I had gone to this exhibition where there was this small AI startup, and they had these softwares, of course AI powered softwares, which would instantly give you entire dimensions of the building by running just one camera throughout. So the amount of time and money that is saved in doing that when you're on a large scale project, I think is huge. So we see a lot of revolution that is coming up with AI, and as an architect it is upon us to remain adaptable to any technology that is coming in the future, and be adaptable in learning, because there is never an end to learning, especially in a field like architecture where the domains are so varied and vast. So always keep learning, be up to date with AI tools, and see how best you can integrate them in your practice.
So as we come to an end of this insightful session, it is clear that passion, perseverance and willingness is to be embraced as the key to success. And our speaker has not just shared her valuable knowledge, but also has shown an impact, dedication and innovation that we can have to this field. On behalf of the college and everyone present here today, I extend a heartfelt gratitude to you, ma'am, for taking your time to share your journey and experience with us. And your words of wisdom have been truly inspiring, and we appreciate the effort that you took in to connect with us.
Thank you. Thank you for calling me, and I hope wishing all of you all the best.